Welcome to the Chrissy Mayer podcast. Hello, hello. We are on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, and SoundCloud. And if you're listening on iTunes or Apple, whatever it is right now, if that's where you're listening, please go and leave me a 5-star review. I will be reading the best 5-star reviews every week. So long as they have 5 stars, it could be a creepy review. It could be a sexy review. It could be weird. You know, it could be talking about whatever you want. So long as it's 5 stars, I'm going to read it. So that's what I'm doing. I'm very excited. I checked my Chartable. I'm up in Slovakia, I think. So props to the Slovenians, it was also Estonia that was listening to me. Whoever you are, I appreciate it. I don't know how you found me, but I welcome to the gang. I'm excited to talk about my new sponsor, and I just tried one of the hot sauces. They sent me a huge box of like all these different products. One of them didn't make it. One of them was broken, but that one smelled great. You know, I'm sure that I will maybe try to buy that one. But I tried the one that's like I'm going to get into it. Very excited to talk about. So my sponsor is Silk City Hot Sauce, and I'm so excited because I actually tried the stuff today, and I was like, oh, thank God, it's actually really, really fucking good. Because I was worried to have a sponsor of something I didn't like, but I'm into it. And it's awesome, and it's Silk City Hot Sauce, and you just have to use the code CMP, and you're gonna get 15% off your whole order. These guys are great. They're like mom and pop, except they're kind of like a sexy husband-wife duo. So go to silkcityhotsauce.com and use the code CMP for 15% off. And they're also going to throw in for free a bottle of cherry sriracha, which I'm going to try as soon as this pod is over. I'm just going to open up a bottle, get in the bathtub with it. And that's how you drink hot sauce, right? I don't know. I'm still learning. I'm a new hot sauce person. CMP, Silk City Hot Sauce. You guys know the deal. Very excited to have this girl on. I have been trying so hard to get her on, and she's finally here, so I'm so thrilled. She is a freedom fighter. She is a political consultant. She is a pro-Trump media personality. Ashley StClair, welcome to the show.
Hello.
I got to get a crowd cheering. I got to get a whole soundboard with my sound effects.
You make me feel like I'm in a stadium.
And I love your AirPods because she's got these cool AirPods in, but she sounds like early Britney Spears, like the way she'd be like, oh yeah, but we're not going to talk about Britney Spears. We're going to talk about serious shit. You're kind of like a new big man on campus here as far as like the Twittersphere and the political consultants go. And I love your story of how you sort of blew up a little bit, and we have sort of a common friend who I guess has helped out us both, and that is Mr. Cernovich. I guess. So do you want to tell me the story of how he kind of found you and helped you get attention?
Yeah, it's actually really funny because as I told you earlier, we were speaking before the show, I used to be an SJW. I was engaged in the social media outrage culture. I was always like, Black Lives Matter, that kind of thing. That was me for a very long time before I was 18. And then I decided to just step away from social media for a year. And then I went to college. I went to my first Trump rally. I started watching a lot of Steven Crowder videos, and I started developing more conservative, at that time, maybe more libertarian beliefs. And then I was just posting on this Twitter account that I really didn't use at all. And I was just posting things about Bernie Sanders or philosophy. And Mike happened to be following one of my personal friends. And he found one of my posts and he reposted it. And he has always just been in my corner, kind of building me up. And that's really how I got a start in this. And it just blew up and never stopped. It was like a snowball down a hill. And there's been a lot of bumps along the way. But yeah, Cernovich, he found me, and he finds a lot of these other people because he believes in building them up and building up the new voices, which I think is really incredible.
Yeah, and I think that's what he did for me, because I was like, he retweeted me one day and I was like, what's this? This is a blue check mark. Blue check marks don't come here. I'm just a lowly peasant,
Yeah. And I watched his hoax documentary for like the 4th time last night. I was showing my liberal friend, I think he's really good because, he's not all MAGA. He's not all left. He just likes to find truth, which I respect. And that's what I want to do as well. So
do you
very
remember,
good guy.
Very good guy. Do you remember what tweet it was of yours that he
I could not
picked out?
remember for the life of me. And then there were a couple others, and you know, he'll still retweet me every now and then, but I cannot remember for the life of me what it was. But I remember I was like you, I was like, what is this? Who is retweeting me?
Yeah, I was
You
like,
know, I had maybe a couple hundred followers that were like mostly people who like mass followed. Like it wasn't, I really didn't have a following except for like close friends.
yeah, and I think it's your style. Like you kind of just tell it like it is. Like you had this one tweet, and I wonder, I have a feeling like maybe it was one of your more controversial ones, but you were talking about like trans kids. You were like, just because you know, kids are kids, they're going through shit. Their brains aren't developed yet. Like they have periods of
Mm-hmm.
time where they hate themselves, hate their bodies, hate their family, hate their parents, you know, don't want to wear the clothes they literally bought the day before.
Yep.
And the kids are weird. So you had this tweet where you were just like, yeah, just because they're doing that doesn't mean
Cut
you
the
need to.
shit and be better parents. You know, your kid is not trans because they tried on a dress. You know, that's not how it works. And we have this push towards it. But that tweet, it's actually my pin tweet. It has landed me a lot of death threats.
Really?
Lot of
Death
death threats.
threats?
Yes, yes. There's actually, I have a case going on now in San Antonio. A guy sent me a death threat. He said, I'm going to find where you live, and I promise I'm going to murder you with my bare fucking hands and rape your corpse and set it on fire. Which now he will be facing charges for terroristic threats, but he was a teaching assistant at the University of Texas in San Antonio.
Wow.
And he
So it's
got
like somebody
so
like
upset
that,
over that.
obviously not afraid to lose their job, it seems, if they're, you know, doing public sort of, I mean, they're threatening somebody kind of public, such as yourself. That's
Well, they're not,
crazy.
because liberals have been made to feel that it's okay to threaten violence against conservatives because we are terrible racist Nazis. And obviously anyone wants to fight terrible racist Nazis, but then you get down to that's not really the fact of the matter. We're not terrible racist Nazis, but they push this rhetoric that makes it acceptable to want to fight us, to want to harm us, to want to kill us, to want to rape and set us on fire. And they usually don't face consequences for this. So I hope this guy, there's an example set out of him, because I receive things like that almost every day. But the problem is you're usually not able to identify them. But this guy was dumb enough to have a photo of his degree with his name.
Oh my God, what an idiot. Yeah, he's gonna get what's coming to him. I mean, I think, like, I don't know, I believe in karma, and I just feel like that's crazy. I think you should, if you feel strongly about something, you should spend your time on creating and not on destruction, and not about pulling people down. And we talk about it in comedy all the time, like censorship, cancel culture, any kind of shadow banning. It's like, let the market decide. If you as a comedian suck, or if you're whatever it is, whatever you are, if you're terrible at what you do, the market will decide. You won't sell shows out. People won't want to see you. People won't want to look at your tweets. And that's the way to kind of modulate somebody's behavior, not to be like, well, I didn't like their joke, let's cancel them.
Absolutely, especially with comedy too. I don't understand it. It's like it's a joke. You know, a lot of the things I tweet, you know, there's a comedic value to it too. And it's like, why can't we say jokes anymore? This is supposed to be the most unlimited speech. But even besides that, when you limit speech from people in general and you disenfranchise them, they tend to get more radicalized. This doesn't help the issue when people are saying things that you don't like. And like you said, let the market figure it out. If people have bad ideas, they're not going to have an audience. But they end up getting an audience, especially when they're censored and disenfranchised, because now it's like, oh, this is the person I'm not supposed to follow. I want to.
That was that was exactly the case, because Parler opened up and I was like, oh my God, Alex Jones is here. Milo is here. This is the land of the band. I'm like, this is thrilling. I'm like, I wouldn't be so interested in these people had they not been so censored from all other media. So I was immediately like, got to check these guys out. And I was like, ooh, InfoWars, this is fun. So I wonder, like, I kind of wonder how the left, because it's crazy hearing you say, like, I used to be an SJW. I was too. I went to college, communications major. It was in Connecticut, just sort of following all my friends. Like, oh, we're going to this protest? Sure, I guess I'm going to go to a protest. There's going to be cute guys there. I'm in. You're just kind of following the herd. And all my professors were liberal, more progressive. And I thought, oh, this is cool. This is college. This is like anti what my parents were, because both my parents always voted Republican. And I just thought, oh, this is cool and better. And I just, there was no real diversity of thought until really for me, like in the last few years, just like you did. I discovered Crowder's videos because he also used to do comedy. So he sort of, piqued my interest there. And same thing, I started reading Jordan Peterson and more like libertarian types and listening to more like Ben Shapiro. And I was like, oh, wow, these guys aren't so crazy and they're around my age and they make a lot of sense. And it just seems like the left has become what I thought was the radical left. That's now the whole left. The whole left is radical. And I just wonder how it got there, because I was able to sort of pull myself out and grow up in ways. But I just wonder like how.
Because they get indoctrinated in these schools, and it's very rare. Like in the case of me, I got more conservative when I went to college. One of my first experiences was, I majored in philosophy, and Trump was coming to campus, and the head of the philosophy department,
what college?
University of Colorado.
Ooh,
the Colorado Springs campus. Yeah,
Colorado.
So it's not as liberal down there. But...
a lot of men in Colorado. They call Denver Menver. I went there once. I was like, holy shit! Why does any woman?
Yeah, a lot
leave?
of beards too.
There's
All the bearded men. A lot of military.
Real men. Real men. Not like they have here in New York. Not like nobody up there is making lattes. Do you know what I mean? It's real men.
We have like one of the least fat populations in the state. Like we're a very fit state too.
Yes.
So that's nice in the dating department. But
trees.
yeah, so these professors, the heads of the philosophy department, started this petition at the school to stop Trump from speaking. And I was like, this is kind of the opposite of philosophy, right? You know, openness to ideas and dissecting these things. And so that being in that school radicalized me more towards the right.
Wow.
Because it was like, and I was facing backlash for saying things that weren't even that conservative. They were just kind of like normal questions. And then I was called the crazy conservative, or I was called this, or I was like, you're not supposed to say that. And it was absolutely insane just for asking normal questions. And again, at that time, I was a very new conservative, maybe leaning more libertarian. I got involved with Young Americans for Liberty on campus, but I was almost disenfranchised for just asking questions.
Wow. And you were like, which is pretty amazing that you were able to get there being so young. So this is all before you're 21, I assume?
Yep.
Which is amazing. And so Cernovich finds you, he retweets you, you get into, you're like looking at all the right stuff. You go to your first Trump rally. Was that in college or was that out of college?
That was in college. That was right before my first semester of school.
Oh, wow.
Yep. So it was, it was 2016. So it was like July. And I just remember going and I was like, all of these people, they're so energized, and it was just such a good environment to be around people I had only heard Trump was a racist, and you go to this thing and you're seeing people of all different colors and nationalities and genders and backgrounds. And it's like, wow, like what is really going on here? Like, what is the narrative actually?
Yeah, because we see, the left loves to go, oh, these are the real photos of the Trump rally, and it's like a janitor and a parking cone, and they love to like twist the truth and be like, well, it was really poorly attended. But most of the stuff I've seen is like it's packed to the gills, except with like I think the most recent one, because there was some bullshit with like some radical leftists were like buying up a lot of the tickets like en masse, and then
at
not
the Tulsa rally in Oklahoma. Yeah, that was a TikTok stunt. All the kids on TikTok were doing that. That's who started it. Yes,
no
was the
wonder.
Little shitheads on TikTok. They blew it up, and they were like, "Oh, it'd be so unfortunate if we bought out all these tickets or reserved those tickets." But I mean, it's just so ugly, because these kids are very misinformed too, because we live in the age of junk food information. It's all bite-sized things, and everyone's clipping things to be their own way, and we're not really ever getting the full picture. You can clip anything to look any way, but this is the world we live in. It's just all junk food information. There's no real research. There's no real nuance. There's no real context to any of it.
Right. And since our news and our entertainment have sort of fused together, everything's bite-sized, everything's like for ADD consciousness. It's like, it's fast, and it's like, what? And you're like, well, I'm kind of too lazy or too busy to do my own research. So I'll just like consume and absorb like what I'm getting from the mainstream media until you realize, wow, they're lying to us. They're not giving us the full story. They're like twisting things. And then you're like, wow, okay, I guess I'm everyone has to become their own journalist in a way. You just have to be.
Well, that is what pissed me off the most when I was on the left. When I found out that I was being lied to, I was having my emotions manipulated for an agenda. That is what pissed me off the most. And to where I was like, I'm rejecting this, you know, like that's the thing you hate the most in a relationship, right? And I was almost in a relationship with the left. And so you realize you're being lied to and manipulated, and you're like, I want no part of this. We are breaking up. I'm going to find something better. And so that's what I did.
Which is scary because when you're young, that's like such a huge part of your identity. When we're at that age, we're all like looking to belong to a group, like who was my posse, right? Like they have to, you know, find your tribe, and they're not encouraging people to think for themselves and think critically. So that's really amazing that you're able to do that and continue to do it, you know, being, you know, pretty young. What were some of your, so you had that trans tweet, what were some of your other like more kind of tweets that pushed the envelope, or things that really got you noticed the most, you think?
So one of the first times I remember really blowing up, and Mark Hamill got pissed off about this too, Luke Skywalker. It was when there was a video of this guy. He was crying, sobbing at the new Star Wars trailer, like absolutely snot coming out of his nose, like at the new Star Wars trailer. And I quote tweeted it, and I was like, this is absolutely ridiculous. We have a whole new like generation of beta males who are soy boys. They're never, you know, they're undateable. We just have all these undateable men. They have zero testosterone. This is not what women want. Like, you are blowing snot on your computer while watching the Star Wars trailer. Are you serious? How are you supposed to protect me if someone tries to rob me while we're together? Like, this is not what women want. And I thought it was, you know, a very normal analysis. People freaked out. Mark Hamill was pissed off, said, that's wonderful. You know, it's so good that he's, you know, this excited about Star Wars. And I was like, you know what, Mark Hamill, you let them pussify your character too. You should probably stay out of this one. But like, it's this whole thing where it's the outrage mob. And that was the first time I dealt with it, really, just for saying something that was an opinion and really not that bad. I didn't tell this guy to go kill himself or anything too egregious. I was just like, we have a whole generation of beta males that are undateable.
Right.
And so that was the first big controversy. And then the other one was Brie Larson, the one who plays Captain Marvel.
Oh, yeah.
She had said she didn't want white men in her audience.
to watch. Only the biggest group of fans of the
and men,
of Marvel.
Men and specifically white men, because you know, she's this big feminist. And I made this video, you know, promoting another movie, Alita Battle Angel. And I said, you know, Brie Larson, we don't have to hate men to promote the success of women. Like, this is not what we have to do. We do not have to demonize men. This is not going to make any of our issues better. And you should never target someone not to see your movie based on gender, or more importantly, race. But so that was the other one. And then there's just, you know, it's more things like that. The things I get in the most trouble for are the cultural commentary. My politics really aren't that divisive. They're really not that extreme. A lot of it's just common sense, but more of the cultural commentary is where I get a lot of the backlash, because celebrities will comment on it, or, you know, the blue check marks get involved.
Yeah. Like, I love it. You have like whole thoughts. Like, men are becoming increasingly disenfranchised when you allow society to tell you that you are the problem simply because you're a man, and you believe them and shut down your power. You're contributing to the problem. Embrace your masculinity and power, which is great, because like what we've been hearing for years is like, well, men have to be sensitive. You can't be aggressive. You can't have microaggressions, which is like, what is that?
You can't be men. You can't be men. And the most sexist thing I find is telling women that they have to be men in order to be successful. You know, this is absolutely ridiculous. So my mom, who stayed at home for most of my life to raise the kids, is she not as successful because she wasn't a CEO? Because I find success as having a goal and completing it. And nobody wants to address that in the most egalitarian societies, men and women do very different things.
Right.
They do the most different things in the most egalitarian societies. This is just how it is. But now they're telling us we have to do what men are doing in order to be successful, but they don't want us to find an equality in like the workforce death rate, right? 97% of that is men who die in the workplace. But we're not looking at those statistics or anything else. It's only where the money is, and you have to do the same job as a man to be successful.
Right. And it's also like what Jordan Peterson talks about, which is like men and women actually just want different, like in a sweeping generalization kind of way, like we do kind of want different things. So like our work reflects that. And there should be nothing wrong with that. Like, I don't think if men and women are the same, like that's so boring. And what do we need each other for? But that's the lie, is we do need each other. Absolutely. You ever been in a man's house where there's never been a woman there? It looks like shit.
And they don't know how to do dishes, and they can't cook, and they can't. Oh my goodness!
They don't
having
see
a man cook for you.
dirt. Like I've lived with
They're really good at the grill.
Yes. Great at the grill. I lived with my boyfriend 5 years. He does not see, like he doesn't, it's weird. And I'm like, let me just let the bathroom go. Like I'll let it go. I'll just let him figure out when to clean it. And that time is never. I had to buy like pet things to pick up all the hair. There's so much hair. There's so much Italian shedding going on. And it's just like, you're like, all right, I could just bitch at him to like do it better, or I could just do it and then I'll let him do the things that he does really well, like cooking.
Men and women complement each other, right? Like I have no problem doing the dishes or cleaning the baseboards and cooking, because anytime I need something built or my car's acting funny, I'm gonna ask a man. First thing I'm gonna do is ask a man. That's what I'm gonna do. We complement each other, and men are just, they gravitate towards different things because of biological differences. We're more nurturing. Like what I want to do is, have my career, but I eventually want to have a family. Like that's my goal. That's what I want to do. And that's what a lot of women want to do. And they shouldn't be chastised for wanting to do that.
Yeah. It's not seen as like the weaker choice, because like, look at you, you're not a crackhead. Your mom did a great job, that I know of, but you have your shit together. Like, and that's not nothing. That's a huge accomplishment, especially, to like my mom raised 3 kids. At first I was like, she doesn't have any goals. She's not creative, but it's like she raised the 3 of us, and like, her and my dad would like do anything for us. So it sucks. It sucks that there's this idea out there that like to be a strong woman, you have to hate and train yourself to like hate and not need men, which sucks. It's like, try having a family by yourself. Like, see how that goes. It's
what I really don't understand sometimes though, is that when you bring up, the earnings gap, right? And you say there's an earnings gap because men and women simply do different things, because we are biologically different. Like we just like different things. We gravitate towards different things. And they're like, well, that's not true. That's not true. But then they will recognize that there's differences between a male and female brain on the transgender issue, right? So if you like pink and you do all these things and you like the more girly things, you must have to chop your dick off.
Wow.
You must be transgender.
What a good point.
There's such a logical inconsistency. And like, okay, so it's not true in this regard, but if you feel like you like pink and you like makeup, the immediate response is take hormones and chop your penis off. It makes no sense to me. And I'm like, so are you admitting that there are differences between male and female brains? They always say there's the brain born in the wrong body.
Exactly. We always
hear that. It's a different brain. It's a different brain, right?
Yeah. Right. So it's like so stereotypes are okay to suit your needs of like, well, this is a kid, this is a boy who's 6 years old and he's struggling and he likes makeup and pink. It's like, he can still be a boy who likes the color pink and like makeup, whatever. Like maybe he's going to be artistic. Maybe he's going to be a painter. Like let that shit sort itself out. It's a lot of the parents that are pushing this, it's like they are doing it for themselves. They want attention. They want to be seen as like the most woke parent.
It's child abuse. It is
plain
and simple child abuse. And if that child still has that issue when they're 18, sure, go ahead. I could not give 2 shits what you do with your body. But when you are letting a child make such a life-altering decision, how is that okay?
Yeah. Yeah. And
how
schools shouldn't be like pushing it either.
I couldn't even go see Helen Keller's house without my mom's permission in like 5th grade, but I could have, taken hormone replacement therapy.
Yeah. It's so backwards. It's really scary. And I was doing a podcast the other day, and it's actually, I think it was with John Porwise. He said, like a lot of the kids that end up transitioning, like there's an overwhelming amount of child abuse involved with kids that end up transitioning. And I think it's just like there's a much larger picture. Like, but it was just so, it was not even a thing when you and I were growing up. It was like,
No.
I was sporty and I liked blue, and I didn't have boobs.
Oh, we all had that phase.
I didn't have
Almost
boobs till
all of
like
us had the one
college.
where we're like, maybe I should join the football team. You know, I was like 10 years old and I throw the football with my brothers, and I'm like, it'd be so cool if I was the only girl on the football team. Like, we had the tomboy phase. Almost all of us did. And now most of the time I'm wearing flower dresses and things like that. You know, you grow out of it. But
it's why it's limiting. It's actually a way to limit a kid to be like, well, now you've got to transition.
Different parents today, and I had that same tomboy phase, they might be injecting testosterone into my thigh, which is so disheartening. And it's when you ask questions, and again, I don't care what people do, but when you ask questions of maybe these people need mental health help, instead of this, you are labeled a bigot, and it is wrong because there's no nuance and it's black and white and chop off the dick. That's it.
Which sucks, which really speaks to the stigma against mental health, because so many people associate, you say the words mental health, people go, well, that means you're calling me crazy. It's like, no, it's like, that's not a thing. Everybody should be going to a therapist. Everyone has issues to unpack from their childhood. Everybody has patterns that are not so healthy for them. Oh, when I get mad, I shut down. Maybe I should figure out how to not do that anymore, so I can be like a better me and better to everybody around me who I love. There's nothing wrong with going to therapy. There's nothing wrong with talking about mental health.
Absolutely not.
I interviewed Buck Angel, who is like one of the most famous male to female, he is, I'm fucking it up. He was born a female, transitioned to male, but didn't have bottom surgery. And he even admits, like, yeah, I have like gender dysphoria. I had to go through what I went through when I was a kid, but I knew that as an adult, when I transitioned, like, this is what I need to do to be happy. And he like acknowledged that it was a mental health thing, which I think the trans community in general is not really doing.
It's not even the trans community, it's the left, it's the cult of the left. I mean, even when you talk about LGBT, why is the T in there? Why do gay people automatically have to accept trans people into their movement when being trans has nothing to do with sexuality? Why is this like an automatic thing where they're accepted? And it's because it's an ideological cult. It's not really about gay or trans rights. It's about, are you in our club? Are you willing to accept it with no boundaries, right? And now they're getting to the point where it's X, Y, Z, W, Q, R, S, T, U, V. And that's just the way it's going. And they keep adding more. I mean, I saw some list. There's actually 43 genders. And then there's the trans species. And then there's the pedophiles who want to get into the LGBTQ plus community. And you're like, what is going on here? Where is the end? And how is this about gay rights anymore? Because that's what the LGBT community was before the T. It was just for gay rights, because they didn't have the same rights that straight people did in terms of marriage.
And now they have the rights.
Yeah.
And it's like, now that,
what are you fighting for exactly? I don't really understand why you're upset.
Yeah, actual gay people are like, well, we're not really all the way down with this, but it's part of the alphabet thing, as Dave Chappelle has the joke about.
Yeah, the alphabet people.
The alphabet people. Yeah, and it's like, and if you have a thought on this, you're transphobic. If you're not, even my friends who are lesbian, who are trans, and if they have thoughts on it, well, then they're wrong. It's blows my mind.
My best friend is a gay Puerto Rican conservative, and I cannot tell you how many times I get called a homophobe, a transphobe, like all these things, and I'm like, my gay best friend thinks the same things I do. Same things. Like, this is not radical beliefs. So the crazy thing is they want the middle, and I'm not middle, I'm more right leaning, but they want people who are being rational to seem irrational so that they can push more irrational policies. But they're very smart about this. They're absolutely brilliant at marketing. And that's why they do things like grouping in the trans with the gays. They need a group to where, you can say, oh, what, you're not for the gays? Right. You're not for the gays? When they first joined this LGBT movement, it's like, oh, you're not with the gays if you're against the LGBT.
Wow.
And and that's the same thing with Black Lives Matter. And I will give it to the Democrats. They're very brilliant at marketing, because they give you this phrase that you have no choice but to concede with, when it's like, no, I actually have an issue with the Marxist organization that is collecting hundreds of millions, if not billions at this point, to advance the Black community, and none of it's going to the Black community. That is what I have a problem with, them pushing Marxism, and that's the group I have a problem with. Of course, Black Lives Matter.
Duh. Why is that even a point, you know?
But if you say, I don't like Black Lives Matter, you are automatically a racist, and it's like, well, what do you mean Black lives don't matter?
Right.
But I mean, that's brilliant on their part. Absolutely brilliant, because they make a phrase that nobody can like not agree with unless you are some crazy neo-Nazi. But then that's how they frame you as a racist, because they're like, oh, look, they're against Black Lives Matter. Even though what it is it's Black Lives Matter Incorporated. It is a
it's a funding arm
organization
for the left. Yeah.
For-profit organization that nobody wants to talk about. There are real issues facing the Black community that don't get addressed because of this. They are capitalizing on real pain from the Black community for profit, for an agenda, for a Marxist agenda at that, capitalizing on actual experiences of the Black community, because quite honestly, I will never understand what it's like to be Black in America. But they capitalize on this pain.
And almost like kind of, like make it even worse, you know? And blame everybody around you, not the powers that be, and not like the centuries old systems. I don't know. I mean, they are blaming that, but it more does come out like at your neighbor, and it's like, hey, I just got here too. So,
but slavery was so long ago, right? And they're calling for people who were never slave owners to pay reparations to people who were never slaves. To me, that makes no sense. Why am I responsible for the sins of my ancestors? And I don't even think my ancestors owned slaves. They don't even ask that question now. What if your ancestors never owned slaves? What if you're just a white person who immigrated here from somewhere else a year ago? Do you have to pay reparations now?
Yeah. What if you're first generation?
How does that work? You know, how are you responsible for paying reparations just because of the color of your skin? Because that is the definition of racism.
Absolutely. It's exciting to see. I think more and more people are coming to and realizing, you know, like you look at Biden and you're like, oh God, there's just no way. Like it's going to be a weekend at Bernie scenario if he wins. And it's kind of scary to be like, okay, well, who else are they going to put in place? If it is Biden, they're going to say, all right, he's mentally ill. He's, you know,
but the scary part is that everyone said that about Trump as well. You know, they said, there's no way. There's no way. They're going to see that he's not this or that. And Trump won. And granted, I voted for Trump. I'm not saying he's anything like Biden or shouldn't have run. But, you know, that the arguments we make against Biden are the same ones we made against Trump. Like, there's no way. True. But we have to realize there's definitely a way. And we didn't win by a landslide in 2016. So it's getting people out there and telling the silent majority to stop being silent anymore, whether you are a hardcore conservative or not, because it's not about that anymore. At this point, it's about searching for truth. It's about fighting corruption. And it's about saving this country that we all love, because they are going to absolutely drive it into the dirt if he wins. But we have to get out. We have to speak up.
What are some things, if people are like brand new to all this and they're just sort of starting to wake up, like what are some like resources you suggest people go to, or readings, or like if someone's feeling really overwhelmed and they've realized like, oh wow, like I was on the left all these years and these people are fucking nuts, like where would you point them?
I'm not, you know, a lot of people will say, you know, watch this conservative, watch this. Don't just go and watch Fox News only either, because Fox News can be terribly biased on the other side. Watch both. Compare the differences and then find the sources for both. Go to the source. Because when I started watching these Steven Crowder videos, what I did is he sources everything. And he would say things and I'm like, no fucking way. This guy is full of shit. And then I go and I click the source and I do my own research and I'm like, holy shit, he's right. So it's just doing your own research and being productive and kind of ditching this bite-sized junk food information that we have and saying, you know what, if I'm going to have an opinion, I'm going to make it my duty to be more informed about that and have my opinions be more well-researched like they were in the past. Everyone would read full books to learn about topics. Now we read tweets, you know, and it's do your research, buy some books, go to the source, look at statistics, go to the general statistics from the government, do that, look at what they source and go to that. but also compare, because a lot of waking up happens when you realize the stark contrast in what these people are saying. They're looking at the same thing and seeing something totally different.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you remember seeing that somebody put it together when they were something about Trump, and it was basically like 10 news people in a row on the left were like, this is a threat to our democracy. And they all like said it in the same like day or two or something. We're talking about the same story. And it was like, whoa, these guys have a script.
Yes, they do have a script. They're all bought and paid for by the same people. You know, us hating the media, conservatives, we don't like big government. The media is at this point just an arm of the government, and a very corrupt one at that, the leftist democratic government, and that's what they are. They are an arm of the democratic state.
Yeah,
so that's what we're fighting, you know, and if you are against big government and government overreach, you should absolutely be opposed to the media, because it's all a propaganda war. We are in the biggest psyop we've ever seen in history, and we are willing participants in it because we'd rather get that instant dopamine from social media and stuff. And that's where like people like me come into play of, you know, making these posts, because it makes people think. And maybe people might get pissed off at me, but I hope it's thought-provoking enough that it makes people think twice about different things. And you know, that it's just so scary. Like a lot of times I get very disheartened by it, because it's like, can we actually stop this? Yeah. You know, you see the propaganda everywhere, and you're being lied to constantly. If you talked about Jeffrey Epstein 4 years ago, you were labeled a nutjob conspiracy theorist, and you were going to lose your job.
Wow.
That's what I mean, that is what happened. Like, you could not talk about this. If you talked about Pedo Island, that was worse than saying 9/11 was an inside job, which, you know, there's some serious questions about 9/11 too, but like,
it was.
Like, you can't say that, but it was like, it's so egregious to say 9/11 was an inside job. That was the same level of saying there's a pedo island and there's politicians and people in Hollywood flying on this little plane and going to pedo island. And they're like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, you are a conspiracy theorist. And now all of these people who called us conspiracy theorists and said it was crazy and hid what they knew about Epstein are now making big bucks on the documentaries they're making on him, in the mini series, in the Netflix series, and running the stories. And now they all want to talk about it. Whereas ABC was shutting down the stories just a few years ago.
Right. I remember, God, I can't remember her name, but it was like this, like blonde reporter. She's like, I had it all, and they told me not to talk about it because then we couldn't get any interviews with the royal family.
Project Veritas got that. They're great, you know, but that is the reality we live in. So it's like, you have to think twice about anything they demonize, because it tends, a lot of the times, there tends to be truth in a lot of the things that people are censored or saying, because there's a reason they're censored.
Right. And just like you said, our media is another arm of the government. I think in a lot of ways, so is Hollywood and the entertainment industry. And that we are receiving messages through, I mean, not so much anymore. There are still music videos being made, but you look at like Gaga, you look at like Britney, and like there's so much to go through. And even like with specific movies, like they're pushing agendas and planting seeds in our heads.
But that's not even a conspiracy, right? There's CIA documents talking about them working to make movies and push it through. We've seen it. There's documents about it. But you say that, and people look at you like you're crazy.
They're like, what? I love Elsa from Frozen.
Yes. I mean, they push these things and everything, whether it's cultural agendas, political agendas, whatever it is. Again, this is the biggest psyop we've ever seen. And the Democrats are so damn smart, because then on top of all that, they have the education system.
How did they get it? I don't know. Probably because
it's been a long game. From the Communist Manifesto. I mean, Marx would be cheering in his grave because of how America is right now, because we set up the perfect conditions for communism. The public education system, we have the progressive taxation, we have all of these things that line by line you go down and you're like, this is exactly what Marx talked about being the perfect conditions. And they've set this up, and they know that they did, and they played a very long game.
Wow, right. And I think it started back in maybe the 70s or the 80s more, or like, I feel like since HW Bush on might have been like okay, they have really specific goals to sort of like get us queued up and ready for New World Order and, you know, globalism. Yeah, what are your thoughts on, it is crazy that you talk about like the Epstein stuff, and if you mentioned this years ago, people were like, what the fuck? And, you know, because he was just in everybody's pocket, owed so many people were indebted to him, and he would trick these politicians and actors and all kinds of whoever. He'd like get them caught on camera with a girl that was like a little too young, and boom, and then has them by the nuts for forever.
Mm-hmm.
He had a painting of Bill Clinton in his New York City apartment of him in one of Hillary's blue dresses.
Yep.
With red shoes. And if you look into that, that's got a whole other meaning. It's like a whole like human skin girl. It's so hard.
That.
Yeah.
I have a photo of that painting on a t-shirt in my closet.
Oh my God. Yeah. It's so hard for most people to wrap their minds around like the satanic ritual aspects of it. I think the fact that there's pedophilia involved and child sacrifices is enough to make people go, what the fuck? Like, we got to really look into this. But it's really scary, really concerning. I mean, there's no denying Bill Clinton. I mean, he's been named so many times. It's like there's no way he's innocent at this point. He was seen him on the flight logs. Yeah,
he was just implicated. Not only was he on countless flight logs, he's in a painting in Epstein's house. A very perverted and sick man has a painting of you in a dress in his house, and you're going to tell me you had no idea? Not only that, he was implicated in the Epstein files that were just released, which, by the way, CNN refuses to talk about. CNN will write an entire story and talk about how Trump said kofefi instead of coffee on Twitter.
Wow.
But they won't say anything about Bill Clinton being implicated and Trump being cleared, by the way.
Yeah.
And, you know, she was asked the question. She's like, the
Virginia Giuffre?
Yes.
Yeah.
She was asked, when did Trump flirt with you? And she said, that's what I have issue with. He never did. That's what you don't have correct. He never did. Like, wow. I never saw him in any of these places. Like, he was never, but she did implicate Bill Clinton, but they don't want to talk about that, but they'll talk about Trump's tweet typos. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, this is what we're doing. But it's, you know, it's also the left they accept pedophilia to a certain extent. I made a tweet today that Twitter's terms of service, you know how they were removing anyone who talked about the effectiveness of hydroxychloroquine, and it was removed from Facebook. They're removing it from Twitter. People were getting their accounts suspended. But in Twitter's own terms of service, they allow and permit discussions about attraction to minors. Verbatim, quote unquote, discussions related to attraction to minors are permitted by their own terms of service. And Twitter in itself has a huge pedophilia problem. They have a whole maps community that, you know, people talk about and they won't take down. They're minor attracted peoples. That's what maps are. And they allow these people to operate. So many people have made YouTube videos on this and tried to say something about it, but it's awful. And sometimes when I go down the rabbit hole, you find people are posting actual child pornography on there.
Yep.
And I'm like reporting this to like,
you tweeted this today. Friendly reminder that Twitter allows 13-year-old children to create an account while also allowing pornography on their site. I have never watched more porn in my life than I have just on Twitter, like scrolling through. And I'm friends with a lot of porn stars, but I'm like, damn.
OnlyFans, and you're like, oh,
yeah.
You're like, okay,
I'm like, usually I don't like to see a dick until after I've had coffee, but sometimes, you know, it's the other way around.
But no, I mean, sometimes you'll have people who follow you too, and you go and you're like, it's a porn star, and there's a video right there for just getting. But that's allowed on a site where they allow 13-year-olds to create accounts. That is allowed. Yeah,
and right, because there should be. If you're such and such an age and they're keeping track of that, right? Because they have the year requirement on your birthday, there really should be like, you shouldn't be able to click follow until you're, whatever it is, 18.
It shouldn't even be legal, right? I mean, Pornhub, you know, it's the simple, like, yes, I agree, I'm 18. Like, okay, great job. Like, stop
great
it.
Job,
Like, great job.
You don't have to scan your ID or anything. Yeah.
Yeah, nothing like that. But on Twitter, it's like, they don't, there's no disclaimer. There's nothing.
Which is like, it'll be interesting to see how that affects this next generation of kids.
Oh, it's going to. It's absolutely going to, because they're more and more addicted to the internet. Kids younger and younger are getting addicted to porn, specifically young men. And it absolutely has an issue. There's studies showing the negative effects of porn on the brain. Porn in relation to the way people view women. And I find it baffling how, pro women the feminists are, but they don't want to be objectified. If my pants are too tight, don't look. But also they're okay with porn. So which is the sole objectification of women, and I'm not saying ban porn, but it's like there's absolutely negative effects towards feminist agendas with pornography, with telling young girls, oh, you want to make a quick buck? Sell your body on OnlyFans. That is the most objectifying thing. Then your only worth is now your body. That is how you're making all of your income.
I almost did it. I was okay with that. Yeah.
I've had friends who are like, I've thought about it, and it's like, you're so much more than this. And it's just,
I know a girl, she's kind of a comedian, kind of not, but like joined OnlyFans. She paid her rent in like a couple weeks, like made like $2,000. So easy. And it's like, that's hard to turn away. That's hard to just be like, no, I'm gonna, especially now when people getting fired, getting like, furloughed, and it's
I think if you included OnlyFans earnings, the wage gap they say exists would absolutely be the other way around, especially after this pandemic. But I don't think that's taken into account.
And the only thing that I think is harmful about porn, like I don't know, I like to watch some porn every now and again, but the thing that is a little bit concerning is like a lot of guys watch porn and go, oh, everything I'm watching is something that a girl wants. And then when they're out there dating and sexing it up, they go, oh, I'm just going to try all these moves. And it's like that's a performance. That's a show. Yeah. That is a show to make you come. Like that is 100% appealing to the male eye. And like, there was female friendly porn. Like I've yet to really see very much of it at all, but that's what it's for. It's supposed to like look hot. That doesn't mean it feels like that's how you're supposed to.
What happens is they need more and more. Like I talked to this guy one time who said, I can only really get off on like rough, almost like forced porn.
Wow.
And it's like, but that's the case for a lot of men. And there's not much porn you're gonna find out there that is like, gentle lovemaking or like normal sex.
That's what I would like.
It's usually like, it's
on a swing set, holding hands.
Very aggressive, and the hair pulling and the choking. And, I'm not against any of those things, but that is what men are conditioned to believe. That is what sex is. That is how I'm going to get off. That is the hottest thing. And it's more objectifying towards women. There's more cases of there being, boundaries crossed in those regards, but nobody's addressing this. Nobody on the left wants to address this whatsoever. And even, I face backlash when I've spoken out against porn and said, we have so many porn addicted men, and this does lead to ED for many, many men. And if I say anything, all the porn addicted men come in my comments and they're like, well, that's not true for me, whatever. But research shows otherwise. Research absolutely shows otherwise. So it's so disheartening that nobody wants to even address it, right? If you address it, you're against sex workers. That's what it is. And nobody also wants to address that the porn industry has led to more sex trafficking. There was that big Pornhub sex trafficking bust. So many of the videos on there were women who were sex trafficked.
Whoa.
And nobody wants to do this. And I spoke to this woman. She was older. She was going to school older. She was like 40. And she worked with a bunch of the girls who were sex trafficked in Thailand. And she did one of her final presentations in one of these classes on why prostitution should not be legalized, and why pornography is very bad, because it leads to more black market things. It does create these avenues for sex traffickers to get away with this and then monetize it.
Wow.
And it's just very, very ugly. And it was very interesting to see that perspective from someone who has actually worked with sex trafficked victims, saying this is not good.
Right. Like if it were legal, then like who's to say Epstein couldn't have sold all the hours and hours of video that he recorded in his different apartments and Pedo Island. Like if it was legal, what's to stop him from, hey, who wants to see like Bill Clinton getting massaged by a 15-year-old girl and
I
et
mean,
cetera, et cetera.
it's
Yeah.
what, like $100 and something billion industry, sex trafficking?
Wow.
That is
Yeah.
insane. That's like pharmaceuticals. That
Yeah.
is absolutely massive. And I can guarantee you all of that money is not just being made by, this guy paying for this girl or this guy paying for this boy. That's not what they're doing. They have this market to just make their videos and monetize them online.
Yeah, it's really scary. And then kids actually do, like, they get lost at the mall, or I think it's a lot of these kids, like, in Haiti or in these different third world countries, especially, where like we have orphanages. Oh, and like it's like these companies that are out there to protect these kids, a lot of them under the guise of like, we're helping orphans, or we're like, we're good people. And then they're the ones that are trafficking these kids.
Oh, that's the worst, is the people who pretend to care. Like, right? I mean, the Democrats scream about the children all day. They scream about the children. I tweeted about this today too. They want to shut down schools for the safety of the kids. They don't want kids to go to school because they're going to get the China virus. It's going to be bad. They're scared about their safety. I think Alyssa Milano was like, I'm not going to put my child in danger. When children have a very low chance of dying from coronavirus,
like,
very, very low.
We've known that for months.
But thousands of kids get sex trafficked through the border every year through Mexico, and they lose their minds when we say we want to shut the border down.
Yeah. Oh, because we're racist. Yeah.
So do you care about the safety of children or not? So we can shut down literally every school in America because of the safety of the kids. But God forbid we want to shut down a border and have, a secure border. It's a logical inconsistency. They only care when it fits their agenda.
Yeah. It's like, what's worse, being homeschooled for like longer than you'd like, or a lifetime of rape and trafficking?
I think most kids should be homeschooled anyways. I think the school system is it's got to be defunded. It's a load of crap. You are willingly indoctrinating your child. We need to homeschool our kids more.
And it's tricky because like my sister's a teacher, and she's genuinely a really good person. She's like, I think more high school history. And I think every teacher is like, they're genuinely good people who love and want to help kids. So it's like, but then it's like they have requirements. The kids have to, a lot of the curriculum does come from like above them, like they don't have that much creativity in what they can teach the kids. So it's like they are kind of limited to a degree. Like I know where she is out in Nevada now, it's like less so, like they don't have to take the APs, or they don't have to take like the state exams, like obviously like the ones they had in New York. But yeah, and it's hard because I think the people that become teachers, like they love it. They want to help kids.
The problem is there's just more and more that are so radicalized. The guy who sent me a death threat, he was a teaching assistant. So many of these people, these rioters, not just protests, these are rioters getting arrested for terroristic acts in our cities, burning down our cities for a Marxist agenda, have been teachers. There's so many.
Yeah,
like, what is going on here?
That. Yeah.
What is going on here? These are the people teaching our children. These are the ones who our children are spending more time with than us.
Yeah.
Time. I mean, it's just gotten ridiculous. They're in school all day. People just use it as daycare at this point. They're in school all day, and they're being indoctrinated by these people. They're not really being raised by their parents, a lot of them. It's mostly the school. And then there's so much that goes on in the school because, especially like on the transgender issue, right? They can go to school and they can have these things because of things they saw online, and their favorite YouTuber came out as trans. And they asked their teacher to start calling her like, okay, Sheila wants to be called something else now, Sam. And that's what the teachers will respect. They're not going to say anything to the parents, and that's just what happens.
Right, because teachers are afraid of like, oh, if they're not like abiding by the woke rules, like they don't want to lose their job.
Kids are supposed to be supervised and looked after by parents, and that's very hard in school, right? Like, how is a teacher supposed to really supervise and guide morally, which, most of them are very biased anyways. How are they supposed to guide morally 30 kids in a classroom that are switching out all the time? How do you do that? How do you supervise and really make sure these kids are staying out of trouble? The answer is you don't.
For sure not. I mean, I remember when I was in school, there was like the cool girls were like giving hand jobs in the hallways. I was not cool. I was not cool. Yeah. Wow. What are your feelings like? Are you worried that the election is somehow going to be stolen, tampered with? Are you worried about the mail-in ballots?
Oh, absolutely. I think anyone who's not is just not looking at the reality of the situation. You know, there's so much less wrong that can go with in-person voting. You know, and with mail-in voting, we're opening ourselves up to so much. In Nevada, the governor just signed a bill that legalizes ballot harvesting. So that means anybody can collect these ballots. And this is what we're dealing with. In El Paso County or Denver County here, the ballots, there's a little cutout in them, in the envelopes for the mail-in ballots, where you can see that it's red, marking Republican. And, you know, we saw so much that happened in 2016 or 2018. Like, I think it was 2018. And they said, stop the steal, because they were stealing ballots. And this is what happens. We've seen it. There's so many instances of it, and there's so much that can go wrong. And the Democrats will always say, you know, it's wrong to have in-person voting because you're putting people at risk. But if we can have people in the streets rioting, we can have people vote. You know, it's like what? Coronavirus, the spread of it is inversely proportionate to the nobility of your cause. But I don't think we've done enough to stop mail-in voting. I don't think we've done enough. I was working at a Republican organization that I won't name that was, you know, doing things for a bunch of Republicans, but they were also fundraising for a mail-in ballot scheme because it's all about money. And nobody's really looking into this, and nobody cares, because it's like everyone just wants to go with the money. Everyone wants to go with the mob, and we don't really care until it's too late. And, you know, all these things come out after it's legalized, after we have the examples of why mail-in voting is wrong, instead of stopping it before it was legalized and just being rational human beings and saying, okay, let's think about this. Let's think about what could go wrong with mail-in voting. Just thinking about it and not even having any of these examples, you should say, that's not really a good idea with electing the leader of the free world.
Yeah, it seems like more easily that votes could be collected than someone would just take a, you know, like a voting booth, you know what I mean? Like, just like you're going to steal an ATM. It just seems like, and the mail is like so public and so, I don't know.
The more we stray from just normal, simple voting, the harder it gets. You know, just going in person and doing the written one, that we saw issues with the voting, the electronic ones. You know, people were tapping on one and it was going to another. And so we see issues with all of this, and it's like, let's just scrap all of it and go to the cheapest, easiest way, in-person voting. You do it there, you drop it in right away. You turn it in.
Yeah, and doesn't the machine, like you put it in the machine, doesn't it, like it counts it immediately?
Yep, some of them do, but it's, you know, that's, why are we not doing that with something as important as our election? You know, the leader of the free world is responsible for so much. We are the top superpower. You know, we're might be tied with China, and, you know, Russia is a big deal, but we are arguably the top superpower in the world. And we have these people wanting to fuck with who we elect for their own agenda. And they have people making these votes. And, you know, I have a more controversial opinion. I think less people should be voting, you know, unless
not everyone's informed.
They're not, you know, and I don't think that should be controversial, but I also find issue with putting the little D's and R's on the ballot, because it's like, if you don't know, why the fuck are you voting for something as important as running our country? Why do you need to be told that, right? If you are not doing the research on the candidates and you're just saying, oh, that one has a D, that one has an R, you probably shouldn't be fucking voting in the first place.
Do you think there should be like a test or something that people should take, like before they vote, or like weeks before?
You should be able to give general knowledge about what you are voting for before voting. And that's my belief. And we have the right to vote. But we also, I mean, why can we not put these safeguards in place with something that important? Because arguably one of the most important things in the world is the United States election. Because it determines so much of the world. If our economy crashes, mostly everyone else is going down with us.
Right.
You know, but we make it so easy, and we want to make it as easy as just sitting in your underwear not doing anything. Oh, this one has a D, this one has a D, or this one has an R. And this isn't even a left or right thing. I want everyone on both sides to be more informed. And the right has a habit of doing that as well. I got a DM the other day saying, I question your intentions, that you're not a true conservative because you were coming at conservatives and criticizing. I was criticizing, we need to do more. And I was like, what? I'm looking at this and I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, so you can't even you have to adhere to groupthink on both sides?
Yeah, we can't be critical. Yeah, we can't be critical of our own side. That's the healthiest way.
You are not going to agree with everyone 100% of the time, ever. You are never going to agree with everybody 100% of the time. So I also take issue with the conservatives who are like, fake conservative because you have the wrong idea on this. And it's like, it's the net good, if you're doing a net good for the conservative movement, why are you getting your panties in the wad? Because there's some varying opinions. We are people, we're different. It's never going to be all the way down the line. But if you aren't in the groupthink mentality, people tend to be like, well, are you even a real conservative, or you're this or that? And I could not believe that message, because I was like, now I'm not allowed to be critical. I'm not allowed to be critical of it.
It's just like what we're saying happens on the left. Oh, you're not gay enough. You're not this enough. If you don't believe this, then you're not a true whatever the group is.
And I will tell you what, I had a very big conservative person, who I won't name, who, when I got into a controversy, I said, hey, I'm getting into a little bit of a controversy. And the first thing they said, well, did you say anything racist or against the president? And I said, no. And he said, well, then you're good. And I thought about that for a little bit after the conversation. I was like, what do you mean? And not say anything against the president. So I'm not allowed to criticize the president, or that's bad for getting canceled by the conservatives?
Wow.
What is, I was like, really, the conservatives, a lot of times, and again, I consider myself a conservative, but the conservatives many times adhere to this groupthink mentality. And it's, are you guys really the free thinkers? Are you guys really the ones for free speech? Because I was just told by a very, very big and powerful conservative, well, if you didn't say anything racist or against the president, you're fine.
Yeah, that seems like too broad of a stroke. And
no, thinking is illegal. Yeah. It's illegal now on both sides.
Wow. So what do you think, what were the conservatives trying to cancel you over? Was a particular tweet, or?
No, there was just, that wasn't even conservatives trying to cancel me. That was him saying, well, then you're good and you're not going to get disenfranchised. It was being attacked by liberals at the time that I talked to him about this controversy. And he's like, well, you're good. You're not going to get canceled by the right, so you're good.
Wow.
And that was basically the thing. And I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
But it's incredible to me how little that we have regard for nuance today. It's like, people have opinions, right? And they change quite often. I'm not the same person I was a year ago or even 6 months ago. And there's so much nuance to life that nobody wants to talk about. And I hate when people get canceled. And I haven't been canceled. I wouldn't be surprised if Media Matters tries it before the election. But it's, the cancel culture they demand perfection without a road to redemption. And that is the scariest part, right? And I saw something the other day and I knew it had gone just too fucking far, because if you know who Maddie Ziegler is, she was on that show Dance Moms, and she's very popular. She does all the TikTok and whatever the kids do nowadays, but she's pretty successful. She was in a Sia music video long time ago, but I think she's 17 now. And I saw a headline, it says, Maddie Ziegler apologized for post. And I was like, what? And I click it, and she was apologizing for posting videos from when she was 9 years old. From when she was 9 years old, because she was making offensive jokes, mocking Asians, or pulling her eyes back. And I was like, 9 years old? I was like, she was still wetting the bed and picking her fucking nose.
Yeah.
What do you mean? She wasn't even responsible for packing her own lunch to school. Why is she responsible for
what she says?
What she says? And I was just sitting there and I'm like, oh my God, this is so out of control. they're not even beyond canceling a 9-year-old. Or you see what with the Kevin Hart situation, and there's no nuance. It's like what Kevin Hart said was objectively like, it was a joke.
Yeah.
It was a joke about the dollhouse, but he lost his job at, what was it, the Oscars?
Yeah, he's supposed to host.
It was extreme, and they canceled him for it over
It's
tweets
crazy.
that were jokes, and nobody can, get
Which
their
he had
head out of
already
their own ass.
Already, I think, apologized for. Like, it was already
Because
like
they
kind
don't
of water under the
care.
bridge.
They don't care if you apologize. They demand that you apologize, and that's why we always say, don't apologize. Don't bend a knee to the mob. Don't apologize for it. Because when have you ever seen someone who is canceled who is automatically uncanceled because they apologize?
Right. Never. It's never good enough. It's like they want
Have you ever seen that? Has there ever been a case of someone getting canceled and apologizing and then it's automatically all good?
Yeah, it's a trap. It's they just want blood. Sorry, there's been some, people who not so thrilled with everything you do. Who are some of the people DMs and such, like bigger people who you were like, whoa, this person DM'd me? Like anybody even really starstruck from hearing from?
No, I mean, not really hearing from. I have a lot of really good people in my court. So basically, like, everyone who's bigger on the right has expressed support in some way or another, which I'm, really grateful for. But maybe the biggest starstruck moment was when Joe Rogan followed me on Instagram, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, this is it. But I'm very grateful because I've had a lot of really good conservatives in my court, and even liberals. I have a lot of liberals, blue check marks, or people who a lot of people don't like, that have expressed support and said, you know what, like, I don't agree with basically anything you say, but I see what you're doing, and I respect it. You're not afraid to speak the truth. And I think those mean the most, because
sure.
I experienced so much backlash from the left, to have the few rational leftists and the ones that are, some that are bigger, and, ones that a lot of people don't like, who are saying, you know what, I see what you're doing. That's really cool. But I'm really grateful to have people like Cernovic who have always supported me. And that's what I value more than anything, is the people who stick by you, and they don't bend the knee to the mob. And, they're like, they look at the overall good of someone. So it's just more, I'm glad for the network of support I have from people.
Yeah, it's really great. It's really cool to see. And I like seeing it, among with my fans too. You're like, oh, wow. And then they're behind you when shit hits the fan. And you just know that, like, apologizing is never, because it's like they're doing it for selfish reasons. Like, it actually kind of is not about you canceling. It's like how that person wants to embolden themselves. They want to feel powerful.
Yep.
They want to feel like their point of view or their tastes are better than anybody else's. Their position is the right one. It's self-righteous, obviously. It's so that's why it doesn't matter if you apologize and
but it affects everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone's scared of this. They're all scared of the cancel mob, and I guess that's why it was a little harder for me to give an answer on the big conservatives that I'm like starstruck by, or the big people who support me that I'm like really whatever about, because the thing that I appreciate really above everything else is the messages I get from everyday people. And especially young people who say, you know what, your posts, they make me feel like I'm not scared to speak out. Or they say, I want to get involved even behind the scenes. Like, how do I do it? Thank you for this. I'll get messages from people who are 80 saying, like, you know what, you give me hope for this country because you're so young and you're doing this. That's what I get more like starstruck by than anything. I'm like, wow, it's actually making a difference. And if I can change one vote, if I can make one person get more involved, if I can make one person just think differently and say, like, you're not in this alone, we have people on the front lines, like, get involved. And that's what means the most to me, truly, more than, because I don't really care about followers, Again, Joe Rogan was probably the only time I was like, holy shit.
Hello.
But it's not
true.
really
I would let him
that.
put me in a headlock any day.
Oh my God, I love him so much, but it's not really about that for me. It's not really about the bigger people supporting me. It's about the general public, and letting them know that there's more out there, and letting them know, like, hey, you shouldn't be afraid to say something. You shouldn't be afraid to make a joke. You shouldn't be afraid to have a different opinion, whether on the right or the left, either one, And so that's why I've never been afraid to say that. And that's why I've always said, I don't care what you guys say, because I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it unapologetically, because I'm going to fight for what's right.
And your tweets are just like observations. It's like, we shouldn't be afraid to make observations about the world around us.
They're common sense, they're observation, and it's like, I hate living in a world where common sense and nuance and asking questions or just stating facts can be considered controversial. Like, why are facts controversial at all? You know, I was receiving backlash for talking about the George Floyd police officer body cam. I received backlash for that, for talking about facts, about what was actually on the footage. Which, why can't we discuss that if our entire cities are being burned down? Why is that something that is don't go there?
He was saying, I can't breathe before he was even out of the car. So it's like, why are we not examining that?
He was saying he had breathing issues while he's inside of the police car with nobody touching him, and they're offering to roll down the window and put on the AC.
Yeah.
And you know, it's like the most obviously Derek Chauvin used excessive force. Nobody's saying that. What people are saying is, why is this going on in our country right now? I mean, our entire country is in disarray. And then the other question is, why, when it is someone of the opposite race that is killed by police, is it racist right away? Like, automatically you are a racist. There's no question about it. It's racism. It's racial inequality.
Yep.
Why I just have a hard time from a logical perspective understanding that, you know, logic train, like how you're getting from this person is killed racism simply because they're different races. I don't get that.
Right. Yeah, we're not going to talk about like that there's far more Black people being killed by other Black people. That doesn't fit the narrative.
You are a racist now. Like,
I'm now racist.
Like, you're absolutely canceled. If you say that,
look at
if you
stats.
talk about Black on Black crime, if you talk about Planned Parenthood, how a Black baby has the same chance of being born as aborted, why do those Black lives not matter, right? That a Black child in the United States has the same chance of being born as aborted.
Whoa.
Yep.
I like this tweet of yours. Being a child in Alyssa Milano's womb is a bigger death threat than being a child in a public school during the China virus. Boom, you're calling it the China virus.
I mean, she was bragging about her abortions, and of course I'm calling it the China virus. I get backlash for that too, because they say it's racist, but it's like, it came from China. China should be held accountable, because not only did they hide the outbreak when it started, but they jailed and silenced doctors who tried to warn us. They jailed and silenced doctors, and now they're saying Trump isn't doing enough. But Joe Biden called Trump a xenophobe when he restricted travel from China in January.
And Pelosi's like, go to Chinatown. And everyone thought Trump was being extra, but it's like, nope, he was doing the right thing. And they will not give him props for that. There's so much hypocrisy. It blows my mind. Ashley, you're a delight and a joy, and I'm such a big fan of yours. Where can people find you if they're not following you already?
At StClair Ashley on Twitter, at Real Ashley StClair on Instagram, and at Ashley StClair on Parler.
I love it. Ashley, thank you so much. Come back anytime. You're the best. We should do sketches together.
Thank you, Chrissy. So are you.
Bye.